Hey, happy Thursday. Welcome to the Table Talk Podcast. It's Caleb, and I'm here with David. And David, it's technically Tuesday for us, but they don't have to know that. It's Thursday when this drops, so happy Tuesday.
Yeah, happy Tuesday to you. We had a good weekend and good Mother's Day.
Mm-hmm.
And your mom was able to come in to Knoxville for a visit.
Yeah.
Right, so that's good. Always be good to be able to visit and celebrate a day like that.
Yeah, it was good. We were kind of nonstop. We went to the One Knox soccer game on Saturday. We went to Dollywood One Knox game on Friday, Dollywood on Saturday, and did brunch together Sunday after church. So yeah, it was good. Good weekend. Spaghetti. Yeah. My mom bakes spaghetti, and it is like, I don't know. If you could choose manna in the wilderness, I think I would pick that to be my manna in the wilderness. She does this thing now where she's putting like buffalo sauce in it. You would love it, actually.
I guarantee
just a little bit of buffalo sauce, and it is, man, it is really
just
good.
Adds a little heat, a little bit of
a little kick. It's really good.
Man, that sounds good.
Yeah, so I've been eating that for like 3 straight days now, and it's great.
Yeah, we had a good Mother's Day celebrating with Brittany's parents and family, but we got to go to the Teach Them Diligently conference, which is a conference that's for Christian homeschool families, but they do a lot of stuff that's even way beyond just homeschool.
Nice.
We had one on helping your kid find who they are, and find how can you help kids develop like their personalities and who they are, and give them strength and courage and who they are. So that was good, and building up morals as far as how to have sexually faithful kids, like having those hard conversations with your kids, and so we got some teaching from that I probably will probably try to do some classes or something with parents here.
Yeah, that's great.
Just like those classes that it's like, this is a hard time to raise kids. I think there's probably different struggles at different times, and so they do a great job of doing that. I bought way too many books.
I don't think that's the thing. I don't think books are kind of be too many.
Yeah, but the problem is I buy them and I'm like, I want to read one, and then I'm like, oh, but this one, I want to read this one, and then and so then I'm like halfway through one, and I'm like, well, I wonder what this one's like.
That's why you just have like 7 on your nightstand, and that's what I do. I just got a bunch, just pull from them. I've got books. I've got like living room books, so books on the coffee table. I have bedroom books, that have office books, office at home books. Like, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, so I was able to buy several of those, and so it was a good weekend for us, and I told you it was a good weekend for me to, I think like you, to have my cup refilled, to be able to take some time to go to some classes and think about, hey, how am I doing this? And for me and Brittany to be able to get away for a little bit, even if we were still driving back home because it was in Pigeon Forge. That's an easy drive for us, but just to be us two for a couple of days and stuff, that was a really good way to fill our cup and to be able to spend time together. So we had I had a really good weekend, and Sunday was really good. And you're in the middle of the series, What If, and it's I think it's a really good one. And we kind of talked about a couple weeks ago, what if it's rather than looking backwards, like, what if I would have done this, or what if I would have done that? This is looking forward and saying, what if this changes? And so you talked about the Ethiopian eunuch this week, and talking about how God's grace and our faith and Jesus is for everyone. Do you want to talk a little bit about your sermon and give kind of an overview before we dive into some of our thoughts?
Yeah, sure. So honestly, like, I think I told you last week, probably Wednesday or Thursday, because you asked me. For those of you who don't know, the kids ministry usually follows what we're doing, as long as it works. On Sunday mornings we try to teach the same, and you asked me, like, what are you preaching Sunday? And I kind of said, I don't know. And I had a topic picked out for this series, and then the longer it kind of went, the more I felt like I don't know that that's the right direction. And then we got later in the week, and it was like I still don't know. And we had a conversation about the Ethiopian eunuch, and I was like, still wasn't sure. And then honestly, there are times, I think you could probably speak to this as a teacher, like there are times when you feel like God just put something on you. And so that's kind of what I felt like with this sermon. And so I changed the topic and changed the direction. And really the idea was just, what if God truly welcomes us? What if God is far more welcoming than we give him credit for, essentially. And I think the story of the Ethiopian eunuch really demonstrates that for a number of reasons. One, he was a foreigner. Two, he was a eunuch. And in the Old Testament, both of those things have complications in terms of being able to go to the temple and worship. And he was actually on his way back from Jerusalem, and assuming he could not cross the court of the Gentiles, if he could even make it that far due to his status and other things. And so for God to send Philip through his Spirit to meet him on the road that day and to baptize him, kind of showing him, hey, the only stumbling block to being a part of God's family is whether or not you can believe the message of the cross. If you can accept that and put your trust in Jesus, then like the doors are open, come on in. It's a really powerful story. And I think for people, who have a hard time believing that God could welcome them or that God could forgive them or that God could have grace for them, I think this story just, I don't know, it really shows us a side of God that I love to see in the book of Acts. I said on Sunday, I think I've got a thing for the book of Acts right now because it's just seeing how the Spirit's moving and expanding that community of the early church in so many wild ways. And I don't know, it's really cool stuff.
Yeah. As we were having that conversation, I did some Googling and things like that, and it's like, okay, the Ethiopian eunuch, what they believe is that he went and became the lead of the Ethiopian church. They're one of the oldest churches in the world. I mean, this was one of the first churches established outside of Israel, and was a Christian stronghold for a really long
generations.
Yeah. And he probably went to the temple, like you said, was only allowed to go so far in. It got more and more and more complicated as he went, as probably a Gentile, could have been a Jew that was, that had been taken away, his family had been taken away. It could have been, but probably a Gentile. And with him being a eunuch, that right there is a complete
no-go.
No-go. You can't. You can't. There was several things you couldn't do. What's cool is that it didn't stop him from following Yahweh. It's not like a non-Jew couldn't follow Yahweh, but there were limits.
Right.
And he meets Philip here. And he finds out, these limits are taken away.
Yeah.
The veil has been torn down. And the people that are out that can't get that close to God, there's some distance there because of those restrictions has been taken away. Yeah. And what a cool story, and one that should tell us, hey, if you're seeking God and you are truly, your heart is open and you're seeking him. I really think what made him special was he was studying. He wanted to know God. He wanted to know truth. It could have been easy for him to just to stay where he was. It could have been easy for him to just to go into the society there. But he had a desire to know God, to know truth. And was reading stuff and going, I don't understand this, and was willing to hear somebody who was running alongside him. Yeah,
no, it's really cool. I mean, it's amazing that I think just like how God, the Spirit moved through Philip, through that interaction, through the text he was studying, just the way it all came together. And you're right, his heart was open to the movement of God. I think that makes the difference. God is willing to welcome us all always if we'll accept what he's up to and who he is. And so that was the posture of the eunuch was, I want to know God. And I want to seek him. I want to follow him. And as Philip explains, hey, the guy you're reading about in Isaiah 52, his name's Jesus. Let me tell you about him. He's open to that. And I don't know, it has become, I think since teaching it, like it's one of the stories that you talk about, but you talk about when you're a kid, you don't really ever come back to a lot. Diving into it again this week, I was like, oh my gosh, this is really radical stuff. And it just made me fall in love with that story and made me fall even more in love with the book of Acts, I think.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love that story. I know one of my first times of reading all the way through the Bible, there were two places that I hit and was like, whoa, this is crazy, because I just didn't know about them.
Yeah.
And one was Psalms 22. You read Psalms 22, and it's like, that's Jesus.
Yeah.
It is so clearly Jesus.
Yeah.
I as a younger person, reading through it, stopped and went, does anybody else know about this?
Yeah.
Like, this is
Has anybody
Jesus.
else read this part?
Yeah. Because I just had never really been taught that, or at least soaked it in.
Yeah.
And then when I got to Isaiah 52, 11 through 53, I got to that part and went, this is Jesus. Has anybody read this? Holy cow. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, actually, it's one of their first evidences. I mean, that's what he's talking about is and for him to be reading that section and be thinking about the Messiah and who is this talking about? When will this time come? And for God to have somebody there in his area that can explain it and show how it just so clearly points to Jesus is beautiful.
Yeah.
And I to me that speaks to, if you're seeking him and openly seeking him and willing to search for truth and look for Christ, he'll reveal himself to you.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
And whether you are atheist, whether you are a Christian, maybe you would consider yourself a cultural Christian, but maybe struggling to believe, or if you are from another religion, if you are open to finding God, I believe that he will show himself to you. And I think we've seen that we see it in the Bible, but I see it in daily lives. There's a lot of people, a lot of preachers and apologists and things like that when you genuinely seek God, I think you're going to come to Christ.
Yep.
And if you are actually willing to say, this is who God is, or I want to know who God is, maybe is the better way to say it.
Yeah.
Like, I want to know who God is. I genuinely believe that's going to bring you to Jesus.
Yeah, I don't know how it couldn't. You know what I mean? And I do think God is so big and so powerful and so wise and also so gracious that I do think what you just said, when people are seeking him in spirit and in truth, right? When they are seeking to find who he really is, I do think he reveals himself. I mean, you read stories about in the Muslim world, Jesus is appearing to people in dreams. And I know in our kind of Western postmodern society, we're like, oh, I don't know about that stuff. And I'm like, oh no, I think it happens.
Yeah.
That may not be the way that God predominantly speaks in our culture, but I do think in cultures where there's so much emphasis placed on supernatural things or dreams or whatever, that God is moving in those ways. And so I think God shows up for people here, and he reveals himself when they seek him. I think God shows up around the world. And one of these days, I cannot wait to, be in the new creation and to hear all the stories of how people came to know Jesus. Because I think there's just going to be some wild ones that if we were to hear them now, we'd go, there's no way that really happened, right? And then we'll be able to go, oh my goodness. Yeah. He was doing so much.
Yeah.
He was working in so many ways we had no idea.
Yeah, I know I've heard of stories of whole communities having the same dream in the same night. Like whole Muslim communities having the same dream in the same night and being like, okay, we got to talk about this. And dreams of Jesus. And I believe in those. I feel like I have had dreams that I left and went, that was God giving me peace about things or speaking to me, and not, oh, I'm some holy person or anything, but that when you're open to the Spirit, I think God will speak to you in whatever ways that you need.
Mm-hmm.
And I think each person needs to hear God in a different
Yeah.
way, and depending on what's available to them.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there are some places in Islamic worlds, in China, those worlds that are led, that it's even hard to get that information. Like,
Right.
even if you are seeking, it's hard to, because it's illegal or it's dangerous. And so to be in those places, God's going to have to move in
Unexpected ways.
unexpected ways,
Yeah.
ways that here in America he doesn't all the time, because we have that at our fingertips.
Yeah.
And so if you want to know who God is in America, you can go searching for him. There are
Yeah.
there are places available, people available. There's unlimited content
Yeah.
available for you to research. Is this true? Because I believe that this is true.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that if you want to know God, that is through the Christian faith. I believe that God is, the Holy Spirit still moves, and if you ask him to, he'll show up and he'll do things that you go, that's way too big of a coincidence.
Yeah.
I just believe, because I believe this and I've seen it, it just builds my faith. And I think the Ethiopian eunuch, not only, I don't think that God just stopped that day and went, okay, he believes in Jesus.
Right.
Now I'm never going to show him anymore. It's like, no, I think God's showing us regularly who he is,
Yeah.
and we just have to be looking for it.
Well, that was one of the things I said Sunday was I'm sure that this guy's life changed after this. We don't get the full story. We don't get the entire picture. I'm sure his service to the Ethiopian queen had to look different when he returned. I'm sure his engagement with their cultural practices or religious practices changed when he got home. We don't get the full story. But what I do love is that when we receive the good news with joy and we allow it to change our direction, I think along the path, like we were saying, God shows up and God shapes us and forms us. And I think you're right. That process looks different for everybody. One of the things I said Sunday, and this, not to quote myself, but I just something that I felt convicted about was, God expects us to be transformed into the image of Jesus. And so often we expect others to conform to the image that we think is suitable or best or whatever, our expectations of people. God's expectation for us is to look like Jesus. And so we can't do that on our own. We can only be open and seek him and allow him to shape and form us. And so that takes time and it looks different. I'm sure the way God has formed you over the years and the ways in which he's done it is different than how he's done it for me.
Yeah.
And it's not as if any of us will ever fully arrive, but because God is so intimately knowledgeable and loving about each of us, I think he meets us where we're at and where we need to hear him, where we can hear him. And he forms us into the image of Jesus along the way. And I think we get a glimpse of the start of that process with the Ethiopian eunuch in Acts 8.
Yeah. I think that is so true. I think if you need evidence, I think he'll show up and show you evidence. If you need an experience, if you're experience driven, I think he'll help you experience him in real ways. I think if you need scriptural, like to be able to look in the Bible and go, is this true? Is this reliable? I think that's fine. I think everybody has different ways that they come to Christ, and at different times you're going to have different questions. I know I experienced God more in a spiritual way before I started having questions, like head questions, like where it was like, wait, is this true? Where I went, wait, do I actually believe this? It's like I experienced God first, which is probably what I needed in that time, in a spiritual, type way, and then came where I went, okay, now I got to be able to answer questions about this, like, why not Islam? Why not Judaism? Why not the Eastern religions or whatever? Like, why this one? What makes this true? And then I dug into that, and God showed up in crazy ways and led me through people that answered questions, and I think God's ready and willing to show up in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really good stuff, and we're going to continue to talk about what if this next week. We've got 1 week of this left, and then we're going to move into a 8-week study of Genesis through the summer, which I think is going to be really fun. That idea being it's version 1, God's blueprint for the good life, and we're going to look at how God created us and what that original intention was, and see how it fell apart very quickly, but how the story and the person of Jesus is putting that picture back together, both now and in eternity. So I'm really excited to dive into that, and I love Genesis. It'll be fun.
Yeah, let's see how we get back to the garden.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Today you will be with me in the garden, is what he says.
Yeah,
back to me with me in paradise. And
yeah.
I'm excited to find out what does that look like.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Well, we'll kick that off in 2 weeks. We've got one more week of What If this coming Sunday, so stick around for that. We are excited to kind of get into the summer with you guys. It's summer study time around here, so we're going to get into Genesis and walk through that together, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So have a great rest of your week, and we will see you guys next time on the Table Talk Podcast.